Thank you for staying with us. This is Daybreak Africa for teacher saying on those city and remain Ezekiel Ogar. This morning we'll be discussing anthrax disease, its nature, cause, symptom, and complication. Now, anthrax is caused by a spore-forming bacterium. It mainly affects animals. Humans can become infected through contact with animals or by inhaling spores. And in Nigeria particularly, we have fewer than 500 cases in Nigeria yearly. I mean, for me, it's more like I don't know for sure if it's for a country over 200 million, if it's an improvement or more like a decline. But in the house with us is Adeniran, Modupe, Imole, and let's discuss the issue of anthrax with us. Welcome on Daybreak Africa, man.
Thank you.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, we thought at one point that we were done with pandemics. We will talk about the COVID-19 issue that, you know, took a lot from the globe in general. And now again, we tend to just hear about a new better disease, which is anthrax. Although currently it might not, you know, spread out as much as COVID-19 did at its time. But this is just, you know, a new, it's quite new to certain people. So we'd like you to, you know, introduce what this anthrax disease is actually about.
Okay. Anthrax is a disease that has been on before now, though may be new to many people, but it's as old as like in the 1950s when the vaccine was first presented to be given to humans. So it has been on before then, and it's just like it said, it's a spore-forming bacterium that caused the anthrax, which is identified as anthrax, as Bacillus anthracis, and it's a zoonotic disease. That is, it is transferable from animals to human. So majorly, the reservoir are animals.
So which set of animals could we actually say are?
It's very common in grass-eating animals like cattle, sheep,
Mammals
goats.
in general.
Yes, it's like vertebrate animals. Though at times we can see some that can be from insect bites too.
Okay.
Yes, and majorly that is a type that is called skin anthrax.
So
Yes.
that is different from the main. That means it has different forms out.
Yes, we have different types. It's the roots of infection that brings about the different types, really. You know, we have the one that is from GIT, gastrointestinal tracts.
Okay.
And then we have the ones we can inhale, inhalation anthrax, and then we have skin anthrax, then we have injection anthrax too.
Now in Nigeria, like I said earlier, we have over 200 million people, and
Yes.
yes, cases reported annually is 500. Is it that we tend to deal with the issue well in Nigeria, or probably the illness itself has not been noticeable for a while?
Yes, the latter outbreak, it has not been noticeable for a while, apart from our data collection not really up to date, but at least with God on our side, because it could be serious and deadly, we have not been seeing much occurrences like that. Yes, and then I will say I'll give kudos to the agricultural sector and then infection control and prevention sector too, because it has to do with controlling and then making sure the infected animals are properly disposed, or else, because it's a spore-forming bacterium, it's a way of the bacteria in general have adopted in harsh conditions or conditions that are not suitable for them to form spores. Those forms they are resistible to high temperature, so they can be for decades. So, and their cells are very thick that they cannot be destroyed easily. So if those animals affected are not well disposed, then the spores can be anywhere, and once inhaled, it could be deadly and serious.
Okay.
Oh, please.
Well, we tend to see most of this disease coming out currently, and we just like you said, it has already been in existence for a while before now, just that it has not been noticeable. So what can we actually say is responsible for birthing this or rebirthing these diseases again?
It's you know, because of the poverty in our nation, people may tend to eat dead animals. And if some animals are dead and they are not reported, it might be as a result of anthrax. And if such is consumed, definitely there will be an uproar of anthrax. So in Ghana of recent, it was noticed, and then the NSCDC, that is the people in charge of controlling disease in Nigeria, made people to be aware in the last Salah celebration that animals should be taken to slaughter slabs or abattoir instead of being killed at home, to prevent such occurrence. If animals that are not, if they are sick and they are being killed, there can be infection of anthrax. If probably what is causing the disease in the animal is anthrax, so that can be occurrence or infection from anthrax.
But taking it to abattoirs and certain like say places to make sure these animals are well prepared, what exactly do they do differently from what others do at home?
You know, we have people from Ministry of Health that goes to such places to ensure the animals to be slaughtered are not sick, and they will ensure hygienic preparation of such animals too. So any animals noted or noticed to be sick will be kept somewhere else and prevented, and they will prevent people from consuming such animals.
Earlier on, you mentioned certain forms of anthrax. Just how many forms do we have, let's say?
Not forms like that, is still one bacillus anthrax, but the roots of infection is what makes it different and makes it deadlier than the rest. So if it's just skin anthrax, is just like you have dark patches on the skin. It will be different from the inhalation one that goes directly to the lungs, which could be as deadly as having difficulty in breathing. And then if it's the gastrointestinal anthrax, it could get inside the bloodstream, going into the brain, and then damaging the membranes of the cells of the brain, and the fluid and of the spinal cord too, which could lead to hemorrhagic brain disorder and invariably leading to death.
Are these stages to these events? Say a point where
when one comes in contact with anthrax, the symptoms could manifest in days to weeks. Then it depends on how critical it is. It might be mild. If it is mild, it can resolve on its own. But if it's a critical one, it can be deadly.
So when do you know it gets critical?
That's when it is not diagnosed early. It is treatable.
Okay.
If it is diagnosed early, then it can be treated with some antibiotics. But most times it is not diagnosed very early, so it could be as critical as getting to the stage of sepsis, that is, the body will not respond to infections normally. So if there's immunosuppression and things are getting bad, the septicemia, then it could be as bad as killing the person.
Well, when we talk about this anthrax, initially when it came out, it was all about Pomo at the time when the government came out to say people should stop purchasing Pomo and cooking. So what exactly is so special about Pomo and the relationship between it and anthrax?
Okay, most times animals that are sick, if killed, the spores might be on the skin too. And if Pomo is not well prepared or well washed, it moves over distance. And these spores can stay like that for a very long time. Just like I said, it resists high temperature. So if we have spores on animal skin that is infected with anthrax, people can easily contract anthrax through eating it. Not only Pomo, with milk from sick animal from anthrax.
Well, from your knowledge so far, which region is majorly prone to this disease? Although currently we may not really know which area is into it because we've not seen so many results yet, but which region actually is
where we have dry land? The spores can easily be blown, though they are minute, but they can easily be blown around. They are resistant to humidity too. But where there's dryness, especially in the north, we can have as many cases as possible.
Well, you earlier talked about the types on stages of anthrax, but majorly, how do you think humans tend to react to it? What are some of the symptoms that actually show that this person has anthrax?
Mere looking at someone will not show that this person has anthrax. And we have symptoms that are similar to others too. Like in inhalation anthrax, there may be cough, but people can cough from other illnesses too.
True.
Yeah. And then we have vomiting, nausea, which could also be symptoms of other illnesses. But specifically, it can be diagnosed. If it's not clinically diagnosed, you can't be sure it's anthrax. So we have some lab tests that should be carried out, and imaging too, like a chest X-ray. When it is reported and there are features that are moving towards anthrax, then it can be diagnosed as anthrax.
So we'll take it to be that normal fever, the headaches, and some of those body symptoms.
We have differential diagnosis to that too.
Now, saying it could be treated with antibiotics, it makes it not exactly dangerous as it sounds. Okay. Is it more like we tend to amplify this anthrax that if antibiotics?
No, it is not amplified. It cannot be overemphasized because at a particular time, the world at large has to deliberate on the prevention of weaponizing anthrax, because it could be as deadly as that. Why I said it's treatable, there's a particular thing I said at the end: if diagnosed early. And it depends on the route of infection also. So if it's an inhalation anthrax and it's not diagnosed early, it is deadly.
Like every other disease, it's more like people that are more prone to it are probably kids and older persons, or
anybody can be infected. But if we are talking about the vaccine, it's not being given to the minor. Okay. It's given to ages between 18 and 65 years.
Why is that?
Because of the immunity. if it's introduced into the body and that person is not having enough immunity to hold on to it, the person might be down with it.
So the vaccine, is it, do we actually get it for free? Say if we go to health center, are we supposed to get it for free? I mean, Nigeria, basically, we don't really go for something we tend to pay for. If it's free, then I guess it's okay. But is it free? Is it just general, or is it something really expensive?
Actually, I'm not so conversant with anthrax vaccine. I've not seen one before in Nigeria. But it has been produced in the 1950s. That is the first anthrax vaccine to be given to humans, was produced in 1950. But there was there's another one that was released too in the 1970s. Yes, in the 1970s, that is good too, but in our centers I've not seen anthrax vaccines being given.
Now, they say prevention is better than cure, but
Yes.
when you talk about, this one has to do with, say, infected animals, and Nigerians and animals are really good friends. You know?
Yeah.
We tend not to neglect even the dead ones.
Yes.
So for me, I think the prevention measures is quite difficult. Don't you think so, particularly in Nigeria?
Yes, I know so. I don't only think so. I know so. And that was why I started with God being so good to us. Yes, because there are so many deadly diseases that could have wiped off Africa, especially Nigeria, that is not viable as that. And people are overcoming such. I cannot overrule anthrax infection, but I think God is so good.
Do you exactly have a program, say, that tend to sensitize the citizens as to the issue of anthrax? Because, like I said, we don't really shy away from it. So
Yes.
we have programs or health centers that tend to do this.
It's locally, I've not seen one, but nationally, the disease control center, they are trying. They're trying, if not, at least they're trying.
Well, when it comes to the issue of children contacting this particular disease, earlier you stated that they cannot be given the vaccines. So when it gets to a complicated stage and it is discovered, just to prevent death, what could actually be done to save that child?
If it's discovered, because if a patient is down with anthrax and then with the complications can be as far as multiple organ damage. And sepsis, just like I've mentioned, it has to be in the hospital. It can be treated at home, and it depends on how far the disease had gone, because just like I said, it can damage the brain too, or causing bleeding. And if there's bleeding inside the brain, the patients should be in a tertiary institution and secluded too, because there should be availability of PPE, personal preventive equipment. The person should be excluded from others, that is isolated, and then equipment that are advanced should be in that institution where such people will be treated. If not, it could lead to death. So,
well, given the state of the medical facilities here in Nigeria, do you think that we actually have this equipment that could aid this situation, just so we do not have, complicated issues in the nearest future?
Yes, we have isolation centers. One is in Akure, and then it was well equipped, especially during the COVID-19. So if such infection is detected, I think they have the capacity to treat such.
Also, in the issue of pregnant women, is it possible for a mother, an infected mother, to transfer it to her fetus?
I've not seen a research on that, so I can't be 100% sure or to say yes or no, but I don't think so. Since it's a zoonotic infection disease, it's from animal to, if a pregnant or expectant mother is diagnosed or such, I think that's why we have multidisciplinary professionals that will come into play and determine the fate of the mother and the child.
Although, how expensive is this treatment? Because you know how we run in our health sectors here, and when it comes to certain issues like this, we tend to know how expensive it gets. But how affordable, rather, is it to the citizens?
It depends on the stage it's been diagnosed. If it's early, some antibiotics may treat it. But if it's complicated, then such person will have to be admitted into intensive care units and monitored, and it's expensive.
Oh, wow. So how long is this period of isolation?
It depends on the stage also, because it spans over almost 60 days if it's detected earlier enough, and then treatment it's ongoing. And since symptoms can show in a day to 7 days or up to 60 days, if it's detected earlier and is being treated, the treatment will indicate the number of days or how well the patient is responding to the treatments. If patient responds well, the number of days to stay in the hospital might be reduced. But if not, we still continue to treat.
Well, sorry to take you back, but you earlier stated the fact that this disease is resistant to heat. So how long do you think one can actually prepare an infected, because we don't know which meat actually is infected and which is not infected. So how long a period of time do you think meat should be prepared for to be safe for consumption?
Okay. In this part of Nigeria or Africa, we tend to cook and cook and cook. Even after you had boiled your meat, you still fry. Even if spores are resistant to such, I think at least they are incapacitated to an extent. And fortunately, it's not as rampant as other diseases or infections around. So most times, we don't have infected and then kudos to the Ministry of Agriculture and Health that will make sure the cattle or those animals to be slaughtered in abattoirs are looked into, checked, and they confirmed they are not sick or sickly before they are slaughtered.
Well, so far, since we have been presented with this disease, what do you think the government and probably the agencies responsible for this area should do to make sure that it does not spread more than it is already doing?
Yes, just like I earlier mentioned that during the Salah, when they kill as many as possible rams, advice was given to people that those animals should be taken to abattoir or slaughter slabs instead of being killed at home. Then we encourage people to report any animal that died from any disease to the veterinary departments so that they will look into what could have caused the death of such animal. Then the outcomes can be propagated to other ministries that should get involved in such. So those are the things we should do at least to prevent it, not eating animals that are dead from of unknown diseases. and not killing animals as many as during festive period at home. To prevent such too, then we don't take milk from sick animals.
Something just crossed my mind when it comes to preparing meat. Just like you said, we have various forms of preparing meat in Nigeria. Another form is grilling, which the meat is being heated directly on the fire.
Yes.
Do you think that actually helps out a lot?
Most people don't grill. Most people don't grill. The only grill meals that is very common is in the fast food area. People will prefer to cook their meats and fry most times. So because to grill, it's either you grill on charcoal or you have that device at home to grill with, yes.
But which do you think is safer?
Grilling too, you know, there are specific temperature you have to expose that meat to.
Yes.
It depends on the degree. And majorly, unlike China, we don't eat raw meats. Yes. We enjoy when our meat is well cooked. Yes.
Well, just before we go, what are your last words to Nigerians concerning this disease in order to stay safe and prevent unnecessary damage to our health?
Okay. Firstly, I want to advise people to not take or eat animals that are sick or died from an unknown disease or sickness. They should be well disposed of. And then if an animal is sick, to be taken to veterinary department. That's why we have them, so that they can treat them. And if peradventure the animal died, they will know what has killed the animal. But keeping animals or reports not going to the appropriate area to tell or department to report death of animals from unknown sickness or disease can be catastrophic. And then on the parts of the government too, they should make more awareness about this and let people know why we have veterinary departments around us for reports and to take sickly animals to the place. Then they should make health easily accessible, more easily accessible and affordable.
You made mention of something just before we go. I'm so sorry.
No
You
problems.
earlier made mention of something that I think needs to be more emphasized when you talked about disposing infected animals or animals that died from such infections. What are the proper ways to actually dispose these animals?
In advanced countries, they don't rear animal at all or near residential area. Yes, they have like a ministry or a department to that. Unlike in this part of the world, that you have to rear animals at home. And then, if such animals die of unknown diseases and such animals are not taken to veterinary departments, I don't think that majorly people don't do it. But in agricultural area or in schools or the ministry where they are involved in taking care or rearing animals that are being sold to people, if we have such disease around or animals are dying in numbers, even without confirming first what is killing these animals in numbers, they have to dispose their bodies correctly. They will dig and they bury these animals. With those people taking the animals, wearing PPE, and they take care of themselves very well afterwards.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this information. I've learned a lot today. I hope you did, Ezekiel.
I sure did. I sure did.
Thank you for educating us today. Thank you
You're
for joining us
welcome.
this morning. Well, to our audience, I hope you have been well educated on what anthrax disease is majorly about, so you could see the reason why we have to be careful about what we eat and how we prepare them. Thank you once again for joining us on this episode of Daybreak Africa, and this is where we'll be handing you over to our Lagos station. Please stay tuned. I am Angela Daku.
Have a wonderful day. I remain Ezekiel Ogar.